when they're going? When is it? Is it this weekend coming up? Okay, thank you. Jen?
The donation committee approved 300, but that's only how much the donation committee can approve is just 300. So
Yeah, that's a cap. So we'll see if we can't shake the tree a little bit more on our different corporates and okay, yes, that's a great. I want to support these young folks when they're doing stuff like this because they represent us all, and work ethic that Vi just mentioned, the athleticism, you know, the animal husbandry, all the factors are there. It's a great honor. So it's great to be able to support them. So with that, if there's no more elders to speak,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Chair. I think it would be wise to also look to see if all the participants that are heading down to see if we could, if the budget committee could take a look at that and give them assistance. I know I qualified twice and it was in Albuquerque, and it's quite a trip going down there now. I think it's in Vegas, right? But anyway, it'd be nice if we could look to help all those contestants. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. All right, pictures. Is she here this morning? No, okay. All right, any other elders? One last call. I know Vi says we're all getting older, but if not, I'll ask the council to give their updates as tradition goes with the quarterly. And I will start. I want to welcome back to the council. Terry Pitts is our Dixon Council representative, and he's been on the job all of a few days. So I'm assuming he's got a real lengthy report for us. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. I feel blessed to be here, but I also have a sad heart. Not only was Anita our council rep, but she was also a friend, and she had a lot of works in place and was very dedicated to her job. I appreciated the words that were spoken by the elders today. I always remember when I was a youngster, my dad told me, he said, oh, I just picked Johnny Arley up and gave him a ride. He just came back from making a movie or was in a movie. And here he is still today, helping us and directing us and giving us good words. And Vi, I really appreciate your commitment and the words that you have shared with us. And the drum group, they give us such power and really set the stage and bring the spirit within the chambers here. Like Chairman stated, I've had one meeting, so I've got a lot of work to get updated on the issues, and my heart's in a good place, and I'm going to make a valiant effort, and I'll keep this short because other than that, I'll probably just ramble, but thank you.
Thanks, Terry. As my methodology goes, I'm going to bounce back and forth so we end up in the center here. So Carol.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to be home. I've been in DC all week, and I see Brian made it too. So we traveled on energy issues, but I want to thank the drum. Always a wonderful way to start off the meeting. And Vi, I want to say I've always looked up to you, and so never put yourself in a second place, because you learned from your parents, and we all learned from you. And then I look to Steph, and I think, you know, what a great mom. You guys are great parents for your kids, and now they're moving up and they'll be the next generation. And that's what we need to have is parents who pay attention to their children and grandparents and make sure that, our kids do well because we're going to need them as leaders. This month I have been focused on numerous things. One thing we're doing, I'm on the board of directors for the Boys and Girls Club, and we're purchasing a new building in St. Ignatius to have a satellite club there, and it's very exciting next steps. I never thought we'd be moving to the next town yet, but we are, and it's really nice to see kids need to have a place to go after school and in the summertime rather than being locked up in front of a TV at home. And so I would encourage kids, but I would also encourage people who can volunteer. They have a shortage of staff, and so we need both of those. And if you are interested at all, please see me and I will help you get connected. And it's a great opportunity to also, they teach cultural, things like beading and drumming and making things. And it's just a great opportunity. It's not just about, going out and play and sports and all of that. It's well-rounded, and there's a lot of cultural aspects to it. So I feel good about it. The second thing we did, well, this first part of the month, of the quarter, we went on a field trip to, I call it the Prime Field Trip. It's a property down by Missoula that we're working in coordination with other organizations. And I hope Tom talks about this because this is kind of his arena and his area. And it's really a good opportunity for the tribes to have input into it. And so, and then also me and Martin, I believe, went to the city council meeting in Polson on the gaming expansion. And of course that was voted down, and now we work to do the behind the scenes to, help people understand exactly what's going on. So I don't know if they took another vote yet, but most of them talked about, being in favor of it as long as a couple of the aspects were taken care of. We went and viewed the Masonic Temple in Polson as a homeless shelter. That I think is just something that we thought we might do because we have a lot of people in the winter that seem to need hotels, and there's no hotels available. And so we have to look at other things to do to be able to house. They can't sleep in their car with children and stuff. So, and we certainly don't want to be in the business of taking away kids, So we try to do what we can, and I appreciate the tribes really working hard on that arena because last winter was awful. And we continue to work on redistricting, returning of Big Medicine. And I'm also associated still with the Lake County Drug Court. And I want to shout out to a couple of guys, Magnus, Danny, I won't say their last name, Shay, James. Okay, well, he shouted out himself, and and Stephen. And these are guys that have been through the drug court and have stepped up and kept things going. I mean, they go out and do some of the most amazing things out in the community. And it's all about trying to get a community to come together and get well together and live a lifestyle, that they know exists, but, never, maybe got into these situations. And now they're doing so well. And it's just wonderful to watch these men and women. It's not just men. And I just shouted men off, but Angela, I mean, there's just so many of them I could name that just are out there in the community doing so much. And I pray for them every day because they're special people. We also are working on a dog ordinance with all of the Lake County and the city governments and all of the entities that we can bring together. I know there was a meeting I missed this week, so I hope they're working on the ordinance and we're going to get that done because, our dogs are our family, our cats are our family. So, I mean, they are in my situation, but I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me. I'm associated with the Ameren Cell Commission, and I was named chairman of that commission, which which is great. I mean, but there is so much going on. I mean, with the economy, inflation, global warming, prices are going up. And so that's what we're dealing with is the rates that Ameren has for government agencies and housing authorities and all of that. So we're trying to do our best to keep the rates down, but it's tough. We have to still pay the bills too there. So I was involved in the Governor's Cup golf tournament, which really gives you an opportunity to go out and meet people, legislators, other people. So it's just really a connection that we need to have because we are definitely involved in state government issues. And so when you meet people, it gives you an opportunity to talk to them about all the things that we're doing here. We met with the city council to purchase the Boys and Girls Club. It's a buy-sell agreement, and that's with the club. It's not with the tribe, but I just wanted to mention that's something I did one night, went to Mission, and then we had a meeting with a House Appropriation staff on fire, and they listened to all the issues that we have as a tribe and things that are working that the federal government does and things that aren't working. So, and I was really glad that they came out, House Appropriations doesn't get out in the field too often. So when they come here, and it's really great that they came here and recognized, that we have a lot going on, and they wanted to see what we were doing. We had employee appreciation August and September. Wow, what an awesome experience. Thanking the employees, and I know they planned on doing it different than they did. We had a kind of like a big barbecue. People come get their meals and then get their bag with their swag, a sweatshirt and stuff like that. And that was really nice. And so I'm looking forward to continuing that stuff. I mean, the council served food and the executive staff serving the employees. And we wanted to just express our appreciation for all that they do, so just give thanks for that. And then we went up to Lost Trail. There was a dedication of Lost Trail, and we met with the Secretary of Interior, and I hand delivered a letter on bonus pay for firefighters. And also Jennifer was going to speak to her about BIE funding for language programs with BIE and her. And so we still need to do a letter on that, Jennifer. And then I'm breadbasket volunteer. I joined the Charlo family one afternoon on a search and went to the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Health Subcommittee. We're working on a regional treatment center. And that's something that Patricia Hibbler is working on, and that's exciting because we as tribes all know that it's going to be very difficult for us to build a treatment center alone because of the long-term funding and the cost and the staffing of it. So right now we're hoping that this will be off. We're getting started. It'll take about 2 years just to do the planning and all of that. So that's great. And then we went to Missoula for Electrify the Big Sky. We're working on a flathead post and pole technical assistance project, which will bring a lot of things to the Dixon agency, Terry. And yeah, one of them is a roping arena. We're hoping that maybe we'll get the railroad to fund something like that and have other funding come in for the fall forest, the walking path. I mean, a pavilion, a boat ramp. I mean, just all kinds of things that could hopefully encourage that community to have make some changes, and hopefully people move back down there. But we'll see what happens. And then Electrify the Big Sky, did I say that? And then we also had a meeting with the US Air Force, SMK Technologies, and the STEM program. And that is a program that really could help, kids that want to go to college or kids that don't want to go to college, because there's a lot of programs that, allow them to do all kinds of things with the US Air Force. And so that's the place it's a high school program or middle school program that really helps students. And then during that same meeting, we found out that the Boys and Girls Club got an offer from NASA to send 40 students to Cape Canaveral, which is the the liftoff of the shuttle. And it was like they had the students all write essays to why they wanted to go. And they had 51 or 52 kids turn in essays, and they had to tell 11 kids that they couldn't go because there wasn't enough, they didn't have enough slots. Well, working through the system and SNK Technologies, we finally got NASA to accept the other 11 kids. So all of our kids got to go that I know of. I haven't talked to Eric, and I think he's on his way now. Anyway, what an opportunity. They're there. What an opportunity of a lifetime. Most of these kids will never leave the reservation. And to be on a plane and go to Florida, my gosh, I mean, at their age, it's going to be it's a wonderful experience. And I appreciate NASA and especially Chad Cotted at SNK Technologies for stepping up and recognizing what's important. I hope I'm not taking too much time, Mr. Chair. Okay, and the tribal healing court for the tribes is in the works right now, and Judge Plouffe said that, Chief Judge Plouffe said we will be kicking that off in about a month. So I'm very excited about seeing the tribes drug court, well, healing court, and what it has to offer. And they hired Dana Comes at Night, and she has extensive knowledge about with the drug court for Lake County. So they have hired her to run ours, and she's a member of another tribe, but she's one of those that worked through the system and was in front of judges at one time, but now she works with judges and attorneys and everything to help people on a good path. CSKT had corporate reports for the mid-year shareholders meeting. There's 6 of us that traveled to Wenatchee for the Upper Columbia United Tribes meeting to talk about the devastation by Canadian coal mines. You know, they're destroying our fisheries and our water quality, and there's just so much going on there, but we need to work hard to work something out that they're not destroying our fisheries and water quality and all of that. And then well, I just got back, Brian. I got back at 2:00 this morning, Washington, DC for a energy summit. And we met with the Secretary Granholm, and I put Brian out front because I tell you, this guy carries a lot of knowledge about energy, and I am so proud of you, Brian. And just great to be that we have some great opportunities for this tribe to really energy efficient. I mean, just all kinds of things going on that we can really bring home and really do some positive things here. And Brian will probably talk more about that than I should, but I already mentioned the bonus for the firefighters, and then and we're still working on that. That hasn't dropped. And then funding for the language programs at Tiers, to Eagle River School. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry I took up so much time. Man,
Not at all, Carol. Thank you.
10 o'clock.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take all the time you want, Carol. No, I don't have to take up any time. I always appreciate the drum and the elders who speak. I truly appreciate that. I don't have a whole lot to add to what Carol's saying, but do want to remind folks, I'm on the Two Eagle River School Board, and they're back in session, as well as all of the rest of our kids around the reservation are back in session. So definitely keep them in your prayers and think about them. I saw a report that they're now making fentanyl in rainbow colors, looking like candy. And so, special prayers to keep our kids away from that. And if you haven't been trained in how to use Narcan, I recommend it. It's a way to save our kids if they ever do encounter a situation. So besides that, I've been working a lot of the same places Carol has, but also a few other issues in the Columbia River Basin, where we have a Columbia River Treaty negotiation going on, and been meeting and learning more about that. One other thing I'm involved with is the Progress Act. It's looking to rewrite some of the regulations to Title IV of our Public Law 638, compacting and contracting. And so learning a lot about that right now. And then I do want to remind people that our land ordinance is going through some changes and is now going to be pretty soon available to the public. I recommend that you get a hold of the land ordinance and look at it and see what you think of it. So besides that, I just want to remind people that I do have district meetings it's going to be the last Friday every month in Hot Springs, and you can contact me at 406-880-5524. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to everyone that's here today. I guess we were, I'm not sure if we're gonna do a Bear Tracks update, but I'll just do it now to fill time because I enjoy that.
Oh, very appropriate. Yes, please do.
And I'll definitely try to make it quick because Carol and I'm sure everyone else will cover the things that we're working on. I do have a great team that are working on the Bear Tracks Bridge dedication that will be this Monday. It is also Indigenous People Day, so we took action last week to make officially that day a tribal holiday. So everyone out there, please go and participate. We're doing the dedication at 12:30. We will have speakers from the Vanderberg family speaking there, as well as some dignitaries from the Department of Transportation, and then the people of Missoula County who really stepped up to help this. They fundraised quite a bit of money, and they also allocated $10,000 from their budget to help with this cause. So after the dedication, we will clear the way and have a procession led by our elders, Yaman Suit. I'll be asking you guys to lead the procession along with the Veterans Warrior Society and then the Mission Valley Honor Guard. And I'm encouraging people to either wear regalia or ribbon shirts, ribbon skirts, as much as you can. And then we'll have a procession across the bridge. And as we go down, the bridge, everything's shut down. We have Higgins and then Front Street down to Ryman. That's the route. And as we come into Karis Park, we will start the grand entry as kind of like it used to happen. And so the grand entry will happen kind of organically. We do have 10:30 as the time for that event, but as people know, things don't always go as planned. And so we are definitely not going to limit any of our speakers, our elders, limit their time. So tentatively is the time, and the team that we've had from Missoula County working on this, I want to extend a thank you to Commissioner Strohmeyer, his staff, and I'll probably have something maybe more official from council later on that. But so Monday, everyone, please come down to Missoula. It's going to be a great event. The weather actually, don't want to jinx it, but there's a slight chance of rain, so that will probably happen right about 12:30. So bring your umbrellas for the rain, and then hopefully the sun for the rest of the day. We do have about 30 vendors who are selling crafts down there, so I'm expecting a very good turnout at minimum for the crafts. So we should have paid. We should have paid you guys before this, so you guys could have spent your money at the vendors. But definitely looking forward to the event Monday. I will be trying my first go at being a co-MC. I found another MC, so the powwow. If I do horribly, please, give me everything you can. Thank you, Jen. We are, as much as I not a fan of doing it, we are gonna give out gift cards for dancers who participate the first 25. And then we are also looking at kind of doing some day pay for drums, and we have Yaman Sood as our host and Chief Cliff as our other host. So it has been a heavy lift, and I can't even start to begin to thank the people that helped, because I'll be here all day. And so transitioning from that, things I work on, I always want to thank our water protectors, our AIS inspectors in Ravalli and Thompson Falls. They are literally the cream of the crop. I participate in the Upper Columbia Commission, and also the aquatic invasive species program for the state. And we are literally we catch things that other states and stations don't. And so they're doing a great job down there. Also want to thank our firefighters who kept our community safe, literally saving, Elmo and, part of Big Arm. And thankfully, the best thing is only minor injuries, if any, up there, I think, this season. So that's always something that's always good. And they are also, I mean, we do a lot of things well, and fire is one of the other ones that we are good at putting out. Yeah, with that, we're also working on the dog ordinance. As Carol said, the big exciting thing for me is the EPA is working on the post and pull yard. We are going to do a walking path through there. I think that was one thing Carol missed. And we are doing disc golf, AKA fall course down there. And that's something that I love to participate in. And other than food sovereignty, keeping myself well fed, and Jim, thank you for all that. And Johnny, we weren't supposed to talk about that. What you said, it wasn't a campaign thing either at all. Remember? And other than that, yeah, I want to thank everyone that went down to the Medicine Tree yesterday. Jennifer, that was good to see other council down there. We're going to try to make a point to allow those activities to happen. And, council didn't, we didn't have council yesterday because of that. So we could travel if we so choose. So it was a great turnout there. Hopefully we'll have a lot of the same people down there in Missoula on Monday. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks everyone here.
Thanks, Martin. So the beginning activities on the south side of Bear Tracks Bridge.
Yeah, I who, what, when, where? Yes, we are starting the procession or the dedication on the south end of Higgins Bridge. It is basically at Higgins and 3rd, right at the beginning of the hip strip. If you are want to park down below, you can park at the old Milwaukee station. It's called the Boone and Crockett Club. But if you are doing that, definitely make sure that you just kind of let the traffic volunteers know. And then also parking will be off. You'll have to go underneath the bridge, and we have all the parking lots on the northwest side of the pavilion, and Karis kind of in between there and the carousel. We have that parking for elders and powwow participants. And so please really honor the elders and the mobility impaired people that need those spots. So thank you for that, Tom.
Thanks, Martin. Also the heads up pizza for votes. Okay, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chairman McDonald. Okay, so yeah, I was at the Medicine Tree yesterday, and I think the thing that I thought there were a lot of good words shared by the people who talked, and I was really happy to see so many young people there, because we need young tribal members to know where these sacred places are, and to know what our Aboriginal territory is, and to know that this is our land, and that we're lucky that we still live on the land that we come from, and we can visit it. And I think that the land always remembers us, and it never forgets us. And I think it makes the land happy to have Salish people walking on it in places where we've always walked. So it made me feel good to be there yesterday. And I just wanted to remind people that we increased the burial amount from 5,000 to 6,000. Per caps are going up $100 to 500 instead of 400. So that's something exciting. And in terms of working on the budget, we're just in a unique position that, like cities and counties and states get taxes to fund all their programs, and we have to raise money. And so we had a shareholders meeting a while back with all of the businesses that make money for the tribe so we can pay for these programs. And I was really proud of just the high caliber of the people that we have working in these programs and how brilliantly they're managed. Because of their management and because of the work that they do, the tribe has money to fund things that we need. And so I think that was the first time we had a shareholders meeting of all of the tribal businesses coming together, doing a report together. And so that's going to be something that happens more regularly. And we recently went to Wenatchee, Washington, to meet with other tribes and other government agencies to talk about the pollution that's coming down from Canada and affecting us, and reducing fertility rates in fish and causing deformities in fish, and how we can band together to stop that and help the habitat and help us, because eventually it's going to help us. And so we did that recently, and talking about the next steps moving forward. And I'm trying to read my writing. So we've been meeting with some of the departments. We met with personnel and made some suggestions about how we would like to see things improved and streamlined in that process, and the importance of bringing back employee recognition for longevity. Tom talked about creating a newsletter that they used to have, bringing that back, and just ways we can serve our membership more by providing better services, and having a training position within the tribe and so we've been talking about developing a training position within the tribe so somebody could train our workforce on really important things like employee supervision, customer service, and things like that. So we're all on the same page again. So it's all about how we can provide better services to the membership. So I'm really excited about that. We've been meeting with tribal health and talking with them about, again, ways we can improve membership. There's a clinic that's being built in Ronan, a really nice, beautiful clinic that's going to be going up there. So I'm always excited about things that serve the membership better. And I'm trying to think of things that we haven't talked about yet. Oh, and so we're always talking about land acquisition. So, we went from 30% ownership, 100% ownership down to 30% ownership. And now we've bought back, we own, I think, over 65% of the reservation. So we're always looking at land acquisition, and, our budget for that is not unlimited. So we try to do our best to pick the best pieces of land to buy as a tribe that's going to do the most good. And so that just makes me really glad. And it would be nice if we could buy every piece of land that comes before us, but we can't. So we have to be strategic and, what's going to protect the most habitat, or what could give tribal members access to the lake, or is there a property that we could use to make money, again, because we're in a unique position in having to generate funds to fund our services, to fund the things that we provide. And then I'm also involved in the Montana State Tribal Economic Development Commission. So I continue to serve on that board representing us. And I just want to say that, now that I am over 6 months, almost a year into this job, it makes me feel good that we all get along. And I feel like all of my colleagues, we all bring something really different to the table that we use to serve our membership. And when the powwow grounds needed to be fixed, Jimmy actually went down there and welded things himself to build it back up. And, Tom brings his knowledge of fisheries. And so, we all have something different that we contribute. So I'm just really happy to be working with this group of folks, and happy that we can get along for the benefit of the people. Thank you. Oh, wait, one more thing. And I had to cancel my district meeting for Anita's funeral. So I haven't rescheduled that yet, but I'll be rescheduling that before the next quarterly.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got cut off on my request for the donation for a young lady going to INFR. She sent me a letter. I got a letter here from her, and she wanted to read it. I want to read it for her. It says, "Hello, my name is Grayson O'Connor. I made it to the INFR last year and this year. I am only 12 years old. My horses' name are Fancy and Al. Fancy just turned 11 and Al is 19, but he is still running hard for me. Fancy has started running really hard for me this summer. I have won pretty much everything I go to on Fancy. I have won lots on Al also. I won a saddle on Fancy this year at the Crow Fair, my first saddle. This winter on Fancy, I won the women's and juniors, and I got 2 buckles, but both horses I have won 22 buckles and lots of other trophies and trinkets." And I was going to read that with their request, and I had it underneath there, and I forgot to read it. So I thought, well, I figure I ordered to do due diligence to finish up my request for her. So I thought I'd go ahead and read her letter. But anyway, I would thank you. But first of all, I want to thank the drum this morning. As usual, they sound great. I want to thank Johnny for his prayer. As usual, he sounds great. But it's like Carol said, she stated out a lot what we've been doing here. And like Mike says, I don't want to go through and take up a bunch of time of what's already been reported on. But, we've been in the area down in Bonner down there up in Gold Creek, up there, Prairie Meadows up there that we were looking at is hopefully that we're going to be getting from a donation from
Nature.
the Nature Conservative out of there up there. So hopefully everything goes well and we might acquire that. I got lost the first time I went up there. I wound up at a trailhead up there at lost it. Gold Creek. Anyway, I wound up at a trailhead up there and everybody was down at Prairie Meadows and I was clear on top of the mountain up there alone and looking around. And thought, well, I got lost. I might as well just look around and see what everything's like up here. But it was nice up there, and hopefully down the road we will eventually acquire that. But, like Carol stated, we went down and with Tom and them down to Lewistown down here to the Charlie M. Russell Refuge and looked at that property down there and got a field trip on there for hopefully that we'll be putting some bison, putting some bison in that area. All the tribes is planning on donating a few of the buffalo to start a herd down there. And with that area down there, there's plenty of range for them bison down there. They'll never run out of area to have feed down there. I mean, we went a round trip. I think it was 400 miles that we went that day to the bison, to that refuge and back. And it was quite a trip, and I really enjoyed it down there. First time I've been down in that. Well, first time I've been to that refuge. I've been down there before, but the first time I've ever been to that refuge. But it's great to see. I mean, it was a great tour, and I really appreciate that. we like Martin or said either here, we were down in Lewistown. No, I'm sorry, Wenatchee last week, and looked at for the Columbia River Basin issues with health and with the Kootenai Tribe of Idaho being there, dealing with the selenium that's poisoning the rivers and things up there coming out and coming into the States and killing fish. We went down earlier and looked at their sturgeon fish hatchery down there, and you know, we see what they have, and we see that there's the resources there they have growing them. Sturgeon, you know, is something to really be proud of. Them fish get pretty good size, and they had a couple in there that was probably about, I think one was about 7 feet long, 8 feet long. But it was nice to go down and see what they have down there, you know. And earlier this spring, we went down and toured their river, down the Kootenai River with them, and they also showed us some of the habitat and everything else with the river that they have down there. But you know, it's the issue we go dealing with too up in Arlee. Our district up there is that gravel pit issue up there. A lot of people are against it, you know, and they don't want to see their area up there in Arlee tore up with a big hole in the ground, you know, and I can't blame them. You know, I lived there all my life, and I hate to see a big hole like that out there in across the river that we used to call it. But you know, it's something to see all these people moving in up in Arlee up there is something, you know, because long time ago you'd go up to, like Jimmy said yesterday, we'd go up on top of the hill and just see a light here, a light there, light. Now it's just like a little city when you look down in there. But the population up there is really growing, you know, and Missoula is going to be Arlee is going to be a suburb of Missoula here down there in a few years if they keep building out of Missoula like that. I mean, they're right at the bottom of every hill now, you know, and it doesn't take much to start up on top and continue north, you know, and with the big housing project that was planned up there in Arlee, hopefully we got shut down, but I'm glad that it was, you know, that they're not going to be there. 72 new homes in one area is a lot of homes for the Arlee area, especially, you know, I mean, God, 72 homes a long time ago was a whole population of Arlee. But, you know, it's just sad to see that up there, you know, that many homes being built. You go up that Jocko Road and you just can't believe the amount of homes that's being built in there. But it just, you know, things like that is the people worry about, you know. I mean, a lot of these people, they talk about the dust, they talk about the pollution from the mill or the what is that little deal? They're going to build anyway to make hot pack, you know, for the roads and stuff up there. You know, it's hard. It's for them to see and have that right there, you know, especially with the people right there that live right there, you know, in that area. And so it's going to be tough for everybody, you know, up there. But you know, I get to rambling around here and I get especially by the Arlee area. But I've been there all my life, you know, and I'm like guy and everybody else saying that, hey, I don't like to be thinking I'm going to be an elder, but I am. I'm older than Vi. So, but all of us, you know, getting up there in age, you know, and one of these days maybe it'd be time to stop and take a look at things. But once you start working, a person doesn't ever want to quit. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for being here, and thank God, like I said, thank the drum and Johnny for being here and giving us a great start here this morning, and the reports that we've had here, and trustee Martins with his work on the bear tracks issue in Missoula. Been great to hear that, what he's done for that ceremony that's coming up. But thank you all. Appreciate it.
I'm not being Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. Love much, for everyone being here. Thank you for that. I wanted to, first of all, say, I really appreciate Johnny Arley and Vi's words this morning. Johnny's been a huge influence on things that I thought about over the years, watching him and what he's meant to us down there in the Arley community. It's been an honor, pleasure of knowing him. What I gotta say, it's been a pleasure working with this council. I mean, they've covered every issue that comes up. Someone's getting on it, trying to get a better way of looking at it, better way of seeing what we can do for the people that we serve. I hear the words that Johnny's saying to look to our future, the future of our kids that are coming up here, and I think about that all the time. What can we do to for these young folks that are coming in now, that'll be coming out of their homes and going on their own? I really appreciate the work that Mark does in the lands to bring these options for buying this land. I think I wish we had all the money in the world or we could buy it all back, because it means so much to have that for future generation, for all the land that we can have back on our reservation. You know, the words Jennifer talks about, what Carol talks about, it's all about what we can bring for people. And I went to these meetings that were talked about. Upper Columbia United Tribes meeting is really interesting. It's been going on for a lot of years, and I think that somehow, some way, these combination of all these tribes can start making some noise up there in Canada to stop this, because it's been going on for a long time, and the longer it goes, the worse it gets. And we've got to protect these waters, the fisheries, everything that from south to that border it's affecting. Those are real issues that are going to play a part in the future of our people's lives. I went with Bing to the CMR field trip. It was pretty awesome to think about. Like you said, the trip out there took us all day, and we just seen a portion of it. But to see that land, that was nothing out there, and if we were able to combine with these other tribes to start a buffalo herd out there, I mean, what a vast area. It's nothing but, I understand it's like 125 miles long, and it's in a river corridor. Be an awesome place. There's nothing out there for buffalo to roam like they used to be able to be free, kind of, so to speak. But it's really, these kind of things are really, really, I think, important. I'd like to speak with the elder committee about it, the culture committees and the elders, just to see what their thoughts are about something like that. I think it'd be, in my mind, it'd be an awesome place for buffalo to live, to roam, and it's just really, really a pretty awesome thing to do. But all these issues, I just wanted to say thank you to the council for covering all the issues that come up, all the things that have real meaning for our membership, our elders, our distinguished elders, the drum, yelling suit for the songs. I mean, it's just really, it's right here in your heart, and what Johnny said, in your heart. That's where it's at. And that's what I believe. I thank you all very much for being here, and appreciate working with this family of council. Love it.
I'm not Jimmy. Ellie.
Thank you, Chairman McDonald and Council peers. Thank you for the beautiful song, the heartfelt prayer, and the words of our elders this morning. I would first like to acknowledge Councilwoman Anita Matt, as this is the first quarterly that we're holding without her. She is missed dearly, and I know she will always be watching over this council. Her heart was always in the right place, and she loved the work that she did and the people that she served. I know she is watching and eagerly awaiting the completion of that lands ordinance. So Mark, know that she's still gonna be watching out for that. She has some really big shoes to fill, but with that, I'm happy to welcome Councilman Pitts, who has indicated his desires to see Anita's priorities through. So I look forward to working with you, Councilman Pitts. We are honoring several retirees this morning and others who have given so selflessly to the tribes. An organization cannot thrive without employees who genuinely care about their work, who work hard and put in the time and effort each and every day to serve others. We've lost some pretty amazing employees this quarter, but I know with certainty that many of them are leaving their positions better than they found them. Thanks to all of you for your years of service. I've also seen many new faces, and I'm hopeful that we can get to a place of serving our membership in a truly professional way. I know we have a lot of work to do to get there, but it's a standard that we need to strive toward. I am also just continually amazed at the current employee roster that we have. We have so many amazingly talented folks working for this organization, and I hope you all know and realize that we appreciate and value you. You've already heard from other council members about many of the issues that we have been addressing, so I won't repeat those, but I'm sure it has come to be expected that I will be providing an update on our missing and murdered Indigenous people in Montana. To date, there are currently 179 people missing in Montana. Of those, 48 are Indigenous. We constitute 27% of the missing in a state where we represent 7% of the total population. I've continued to provide presentations in an effort to help educate and raise awareness to the issue. Last month, I was able to present to the Mountain Line Transit in Missoula. And I'm excited to share that I've been invited to sit on a panel for a White House symposium to address MMIP this fall. If even one person learns just one thing during my presentations, it's one more person in the know than yesterday. So I'll continue to do the work and try to help educate and raise awareness on that front. I am also continuing to educate myself on human trafficking and will be attending a statewide human trafficking symposium next week in Helena. Additionally, I'm committed to do what I can to help address the fentanyl epidemic facing our communities. Jimmy and Bing have attended meetings with me in that regard. And these are really, truly scary times when it comes to fentanyl, and we absolutely have to try to get a handle on this. We need our people healthy and strong and able to provide for our babies and our future generations. And finally, I continue to serve on the Salish Kootenai Housing Authority Board, the Lake County 911 Board, and the SKC Emergency Services Advisory Committee. In trying to stay short and sweet today, I would like to thank my council colleagues for another successful quarter. Thank you all for being you. As Councilwoman Finley shared, we're a very diverse group and we get along well. It's truly an honor and a privilege to work with each of you. With that, I will end my report by saying thank you to the membership for the opportunity to serve you. Lem Lunch Pesia.
Thank you, Ellie. Len?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. And once again, I too would also like to thank the drum and all of you that have joined us today. I also wanted to acknowledge Johnny. Johnny, I am very honored that you are living amongst us again. So it's going to be good seeing you around and especially with our quarterlies here. And Vi, thank you for those wise words that you shared with us this morning. Mr. Chairman and members of the council, I also like to acknowledge a few other elders that have just joined us late here from the Elmo community. That's Wayne McCoy. Wayne has always been involved in our language programs, and our very own Diane Michelle. Diane, thank you for being here with us today. It's really good to see you again. And Diane has always been a supporter of all of our events over in Elmo. And once again, I need to acknowledge that I have not been having district meetings, and I will start those up again, Diane, so we can start having the community get-togethers again. And in addition to that, I also like to acknowledge our late community member, Clarice. Clarice, thank you for being here today. It's always good to see you when you join us, especially when we see you with the Two Eagle class. So it's really good to see you today. And thank you for being with us today. I just want to acknowledge, that this council has taken the initiative to acknowledge our workforce, realizing that it is our employees and workers who make this tribe successful. We are here today because of you all, not only our tribal employees, but our corporate employees. So we have wanted to take that extra effort to make sure that we acknowledge you more consistently. And on events like this as a quarterly, we will be doing this more often than not. And I think that's very important. I was very proud of the fact that not only did the executive staff, but my council colleagues took part in the employee recognition. That was huge, and I've seen a lot of people enjoyed that and were very appreciative of that. So I just wanted to quickly mention that. I also would like to report to the membership and in regards to a statement that Councilwoman Finley mentioned. This council is working great together. There is no divisiveness. There is no animosity. We support one another. We work great together. It feels good to come in here and get work done, knowing that we all have something different to bring to the table, like diverse thoughts that make us really look at the issues differently, to making sure that the decisions we make are benefiting our people. And we could not do that without the leadership of our new chair, Tom. Tom has really stepped up to the plate and is leading us to a whole new era of dealing with these issues. In addition to that, I would also like to let the membership know that one of our challenges that we are having today is acknowledging that this reservation is growing. The population the population of people that are moving into our area is astounding. And we see it on our resources. And we would like to purchase every parcel of land that comes before us, but unfortunately we cannot. And so we're very grateful that we have a staff that has working with us on prioritizing on what is best for the membership. At some point in time, as we move further and are able to access our land settlement funds, yes, we will be purchasing more land than ever before. However, one of our obstacles and challenges with our land settlement is the government has laid out some requirements that we need to meet before we can access those funds. And it's very frustrating, challenging, and it's going to be a little more time consuming than we thought, but we're going to get there. And I think it's very, very important for you all to know. With that said, Mr. Chairman and members of the council and distinguished membership, I want to thank you for allowing me to represent you. And I never forget who I work for. So I always mention that at every quarterly because it's really important that you know that. So thank you all.
Thank you, Len. Well, as you can see, it's really great because it comes to me at the center and everything's covered. So we could just expedite right into the other items. But I want to make a couple of expansions on some of the topics, and of course, thank this council for being such a good council, working together, and appreciate Len's words. in regards to me personally, but it's not about me. It's about the people and the resources and making sure that we can go forward into the future for generations and generations to come. So I want to thank the Drum. I want to thank Johnny, who's always been a good friend to me my whole life, and always been a good advisor. And Vi, of course, for she demonstrated why she's in our elders committee this morning. So want to make sure we cover that. And thank you. So a couple of things that maybe we didn't touch on was the expansion of revenue sharing for our medical marijuana and recreational marijuana sales on the reservation. We're negotiating that right now, so that revenue sharing will come back to us just like we do with our gas tax, alcohol tax, etc. I want to expand a little bit more about the Blackfoot, land back. So we've got a lot of folks that are really inclusive that we're working with. Missoula County commissioners, a lot of nonprofit organizations. And so when Bing brought up the Prim Meadows, yeah, we're looking forward to a section of land coming back to the tribes up in the Blackfoot, and probably more in that area as we work with the Bureau of Land Management and the Nature Conservancy and other nonprofits. So that's a very bright future ahead of us as we look at all these different areas. And Carol brought up, going up to the Lost Trail up out of Kalispell. That's a whole nother area that has a lot of bright futures. We're working with a lot of big landowners that are singular landowners, whether it's the new Texan that just bought up everything up like Plum Creek, north of Hubbard Reservoir, or the Hubbard Reservoir area west of Lake Mary Ronan, to some of our other folks that live here on the reservation that have been strong advocates for the tribes. So there's a lot of good opportunity there for land back besides just what we buy. We'll make sure we covered that. When Jennifer talked about all of our corporations, enterprises coming together, and Brian's here for Energy Keepers, we're challenging and we're trying to create more opportunity to raise revenue so we can increase our services to our membership. We can be more responsive to our needs, but also have that opportunity to be able to purchase more land back. So we've challenged all of the enterprises to be able to do that, especially when it's easy to expand, and where we look forward to that. When being talked about Buffalo, all of these things, well, the Columbia River Treaty, a lot of this is based on us standing up for our rights, the things that are, in 1855, our forefathers said, this is us and this is us forever. And we have an obligation to take care of everything forever, because that's us. I mean, we have an obligation to keep this water clear and clean and cold, to make sure buffalo are out there forever, things that have sustained our people for such a long period of time. So it's very serious that we look at that. But a lot of this is based in our treaty rights, and want to be able to do that. So when we talk about, let's bring buffalo back out in the Charles M. Russell Refuge. Yeah, well, I mean, why not, right? That's part of that interest for us to be able to sustain ourselves, to give back to buffalo, to be able to provide those meals for our family. Or if it's water quality in the Kootenai River, we want to make sure that we have burbot, we have white sturgeon, we have bull trout in the Kootenai River, because we don't want the mining pollution for coming out of tech mining up in Elk River country in British Columbia. We look forward to those challenges and want to make sure that we're moving forward in the right way in protecting those interests and protecting all of the fisheries and wildlife and resources that have been important for us and into the future. So that's pretty critical. So the CMR, we are part of that. We are part of trying to restore buffalo there as we expand the buffalo management in Yellowstone Park area. So this upcoming year in Yellowstone, we're looking forward to hopefully a real successful hunt period for our people. I know a lot of people in this room go hunt buffalo, have in the past. If not, there'll probably be an administrative removal, and we'll look forward to that to bring buffalo back to our programs and our people also. The one increase that people didn't talk about, Jennifer said, we've increased per capita, we increased our funeral benefits, but one of the things I was proud of was increasing funding for our powwows. And that occurred, and I thought our powwows were pretty successful this year. So I want to thank all those that were part of that. I always been a strong supporter and want to make sure that we fund them adequately. So that's really important. And as we move on today in the agenda, we'll talk about recognizing some of our employees and recently retired and some other honorings. But right now I want to thank all of you for coming, and I want to recognize the hard year for fire that we had. And I was in the fire business for a while, and it's very difficult. And when you're in it up to your eyeballs, you're providing 110% 7 days a week, and it's a lot of work, a lot of strategy, and a lot of safety. And so I want to thank all our firefighters for the work they did to keep people safe during the Elmwood 2 fire and other fires we've had here. And with that, I'm going to ask Art to give us a little bit of a fire update. Art's, I like Art because he's a prescribed guy. He lights them up like I used to. And when you're a pyromaniac, it's kind of fun, Art. I'm gonna turn it over to Art.
I just wanted to give you guys kind of an update real quick on what we got going on. Most of us from Division of Fire will probably not be participating in the bridge honoring thing. We'll be burning on that Monday. So those guys will be absent from that, but we wish you guys all the luck on that. We're going to be burning in the St. Mary's timber sale on the east end of Pistol Creek. So if you see columns of smoke coming out of there, don't be too alarmed. That's just us. We're finishing up some broadcast units for forestry so they can get them replanted. And the rest of them is the continuation of our understory burn program so that we get fire back on the ground. So when we do have the fires like we had this summer, it's not going to be as damaging. And along with that, we are still working on Elmo, Garso, what's the other ones? We've got over by Hot Springs, we've got a few fires that we're working on that we'll have, we're doing rehab work on them right now. So if anyone's in the area, please be mindful of that. And, you don't have to stay out, just watch where you're going and pay attention where we got people working. And then also the Red Horn fire, which is in the buffer zone. We've had some people trying to drive up in there on the stuff that we did. So it encouraged people to, if you know anyone that's wanting to recreate in that area, they need to stay out of there. If for no other reason, the grizzly bear closure, I believe, is still in place. So, any of your family or whatever, remind them of that. And that's going to be one of the last ones we work on. We have somebody coming up to grind up all the material that we generated there, and then we'll rehab the lines and everything will be done. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Thank you, Art. Okay, so one of the important things is recognizing employees, and we want to make sure that for the record, we want to thank some of our recently retired employees. Aileen Gardapi at Mission Valley Power, Douglas Brown at Mission Valley Power, Gerald McKeldry at Forestry, Mary Price in our legal department, Bernadette Antoine at Probation, James Taylor at the prosecutor's office, Monty Marengo at Forestry. And then we also want to take a moment here to recognize some of the achievements that some of our students have done. And so I'm going to ask Martin to recognize some of our language students.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. Do apologize that we weren't able to make the graduation that they had for some of these students. Most of the crew was in Wenatchee for the Columbia River meeting, and I didn't go because my daughter had appointments that day. So I apologize that we weren't there. We will make sure that we're at the next ones. So congratulations to the Salish Kalispell Culture Committee language program apprentices for the first year. I'll just read them in no order. Nadia Left Adams, Antiqua Matt, Elijah Cahoon, John Stevens, Geraldine McDonald, Andrea McDonald, Lydia McKinney, and Naomi Stevens. So a big round of applause for them. Well, we could do better than that, guys. For the next ones, you guys better. 2 years is a heck of a deal. I really am honestly envious of these people that are doing this program, because that was something that I always said I'd go back to, and I know it's not too late, but I try to use what little I know to say a few things. For our second year apprentices, we have Laurencia Starblanket, Molly Matt, Al, AKA Giddy Woodcock, Jan Gardepy, Lauren Claremont, Malia Vanderberg, who's actually one of our speakers at the Bear Tracks Bridge, and she's also our head woman dancer, along with her brother Ridge. Get that plug in for Bear Tracks, and Christina Mays. So please, let's give them a very good round of applause. How much, everyone?
Thank you, Martin. So on the north end, I'd really like to have Len do the same thing for our Kootenai Culture Committee
All right,
language students.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I'm glad we are acknowledging this. Yes, we would like to acknowledge our Kootenai language apprentices. You know, one of their most unique accomplishments that they have done within this past year is they have went up above and beyond and really stepped up for our community. And what they have done is they started, well, let me kind of back up. Ever since we've gone through the pandemic, we have lost a lot of our people that led us in our prayers and our hymns, especially during our wakes and funerals. And what our apprentices have done is they have gotten together and they have stepped up and started singing those hymns for us. They took the lead. Nobody had to tell them. They seen what was happening. And it was really great to see this group of kids. You know, not only have they stepped up to learn the language every day, but to do something like this was just tremendous. And I thought it was really important that we acknowledge them, because all of our tribal members that are currently participating in these language apprentice programs, this is the toughest job within the tribes. The toughest jobs. And I think about it, having to sit in an 8 to 10 hour day to learn the language on a daily basis is very, very difficult, very hard, but yet they stuck with it. And these are the people that are going to be carrying our culture and our language and our songs and our ceremonies. So very grateful. I just want to acknowledge these people that are participating in the apprentice program. And this first individual is Marquise Askin, Kiki Perez, PJ Ald, Seneca Stanger, Elijah Left Hand, Jacqueline Wright, Denzel Left Hand, and Nolan Antiste. I want to thank them, and I just wanted to acknowledge them, and let's give them another round of applause here. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council.
Thank you, Len. Carol?
Yeah, I just also wanted to mention, you know, when I was very, very young, I remember my mom taking me to Custata Hall for the wakes and funerals and those songs and everything that would happen during that time. And then, you know, that kind of went away after certain people passed on. And then Daniel Stiffarm came along and started doing the prayers in the Kootenai language. And then all of a sudden, now we have all of these young people that are stepping up. And I remember when Len's sister passed away, they came, you know, just before her passing. did the prayers and did a hymn, and it made me feel good. I just thought to myself, there's a lot of things that are starting to come back because people want to get back into that and see those things carried on. But just to see those young people and hear them, it just brings you back to those olden days when that happened at homes and, at the Custodial Hall. So I just really, really appreciate both language culture committees and what they're doing, because it's magnificent. And finally, this council recognizes the importance of getting students and getting old or young, involved in this. And so I'm just really happy for this. And I hope we put more money into it because it really needs to continue on. We all need to learn. And I think we all recognize that up here. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol. So part of our agenda now is really, really important as it all has been, but trying to recognize some people in person for their distinguished service and dedication and what they brought forward to their work, their achievement here for the tribes. And so I'd like to call on Julie Kajun and have Jennifer talk a little bit about Julie for honoring. Go ahead, if you would. Surprise, surprise.
I just wanted to say,
It's funny.
Julie didn't know she was getting an award. I'm on a board and I thought was here for my board people. Oh, yeah. You are special. Oh, photo op here. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say the world is always teaching us. All the stories we hear, all the people we meet. And when we're kids, everybody we encounter teaches us something about our place in the world. All the teachers that we have, our parents and our relatives. And sometimes, oftentimes, too many times, Indian children don't have any people or enough people telling them that they matter, telling them that they're beautiful and that this is their land and they belong here, and that they have something important to contribute. And Julie's work and who she is and what she does makes a difference. She makes a dent. She makes an impact, an imprint in the lives of children. She's a teacher, a former teacher, and she's now the teacher of teachers. And her work creates materials locally, nationally, and internationally that teach people about the beauty of our culture and who we are and our power. And that work is going to last for generations and generations. And I'm really proud to know Julie and call her a friend, but I'm so proud of the work that Julie does. And I think Julie is one of the few people who is a true leader because she does things that help other people. And she does work that makes us stronger as a tribe. And that will continue to make us stronger as a tribe and as a people. And Julie has won a number of awards. I was looking online and I thought, oh my God, she has won numerous awards nationally and internationally. Julie has created films, books, a CD, plays, educational curricula, teacher trainings that are used all over the world to educate people about us. And I know that when my kids were in school in Missoula, they learned about the Salish names for the months of the year. And they visited the place where the Hellgate Treaty was signed and read it because of the work of Julie Kajun. And so Julie has, and the place names that we see on the reservation, those kinds of things happened because of Julie Kajun. And Julie is also one of the most humble people I know. And she's the last person often who wants to call attention to herself. But her work is remarkable. And she does work that I don't think anybody else could do with as much heart as she brings. And I think that the most important thing about Julie's work is how it makes people feel. Julie's work makes people feel proud of their culture and their history and who they are. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's what a good teacher, a mentor, and a role model does. So thank you, Julie, for the work that you do.
Please stay up here. Sit down. will you?
I want to say something because, because, you know, my mentor's here, Johnny is here, and the reason that I even know a place name on the reservation really is because of Johnny sitting down with other elders. And those old tape recorders, you know, that you've sat on the table, those old timey ones with the cassette tape and recorded those. And when I came home to just for the summer, and I was going to student teach in Bozeman, and Terry O'Fallon had written a bilingual grant, and she was looking for a tribal member teacher because the culture committee said we have to have a tribal member teacher. And she found out that I was home, and she talked me into coming and talk to her. I said, oh, I'm going to Bozeman to student teach. They pay teachers $6,000 more over there. And I've got a couple of kids to raise, but Terry O'Fallon, I just want to speak her name because she is a remarkable woman, and she believed in me as a new teacher teaching 400 kids. But I didn't know a thing. And I said, what I know, like 5 or 6 Salish words, but I worked with Chauncey Beaverhead in that program. I worked with a couple different fluent speakers, but because of the work that Johnny started, that was just sitting down, visiting with elders and collecting knowledge, because the elders at that time said our children are getting lost and they don't know who they are. And so sometimes we can love our knowledge so much that we almost want to hide it because we've had to. But I'm grateful for all of the elders that were generous with me, because I didn't know anything to share with those kids and I had to go ask people. And that's a really humbling experience. It was good for me, but I don't know anything. I just know people that know a lot. And so people like Clarence Woodcock and Johnny and Francis Vandenberg and Ushani, and I could go on to a long list. Roy Big Crane came to my classroom and encouraged me. So I'm just lucky that I get to do this. And I know a little bit about teaching, but I know people who know a lot about this place and our people and who we are. And so Lemleps, Chotle, Yepen, Lemleps. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Lips to you, Julie.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of other folks that really caring for our people in need. I wanted to make sure, and I'm gonna ask Len to talk about them, but Charneil and Natalie Kimmel have been really important for us in what we do and how we provide. So please, Len, if you would.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to do this. You know, being on the council for the last 2 terms, I've seen a lot of our membership out there that are struggling, having tough times. And there are times in their lives when things happen and people, unfortunate things happen and people end up in the hospital. And I'm so grateful that we have staff member Charneil doing the work that she does. Char has helped so many families in these dire situations to make sure that they are close with their loved ones during a time of need. And what's unique about Char is she answers the phone at any hour of the night. Any hour of the night, she has been very responsive to the membership's needs, and we're very grateful. Sure, we felt it was very important that we acknowledge you and that you know that we notice your work, because we know that you work more than 40 hours a week. We realize that, we understand that, but it's just the vital services that you provide to the members is what we're so grateful for. And you have a thorough understanding of how the program works. And you've worked with all of our members to make sure that everyone is with their loved ones during their times. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the work that you do. And we are so grateful for you. So.
Yeah, Natalie couldn't make it,
Okay.
so we're gonna,
Mr. Chairman, also, I also would like to say a few words about Natalie. Natalie works in our DHRD programs and she administers dire need. And she too has gone above and beyond in helping our people that are struggling financially. And I'm so grateful for her because there are so many people that have reached out to us here on council. And we're so grateful that Natalie has been responsive. So I'm so grateful that this council has taken the time to acknowledge these two beautiful people that work for us because they're so invalued. And it's so grateful. As I mentioned before, we need to acknowledge all of our employees because you all have an important contribution that you have given to not only to our tribe, but to our people. So thank you.
the next person, I think she caught wind and decided not to come to work today. But Martin, I want you to please, Charlene Pettit is one of those employees. I mean, I think of Vi when I think of, you know, this kind of hardworking person who's always here and keeping it straight. And so Martin, if you would say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to the honorees. I had the pleasure of working under Charlene at the Contracts and Grants Division, and she is now the lead contracts and grants specialist, and she was probably one of the most knowledgeable people about our organization. She could remember things from, you know, years and years ago and specifics and down to numbers and things like that, and her ability to get these grants and do them correctly. And I don't know if anyone's ever done a grant application, but they are tedious and unforgiving, and they are boring, and they are the people that can do that work. I really appreciate them because I did that for about 3 years, and thankfully I had a teacher like her to really teach me the ropes. And not only that, you know, she's kind of the matriarch of the Matt family, and you know, she brings that same commitment to, you know, to her work as she does to her family. And she's someone that's you know, very, very stern, very you know, can definitely you know, she's an elder, and she is definitely her own person. But once you get to know her, she's probably the kindest, most giving person that I've ever met. She definitely put the fear of God in me some days, but I loved her for that because I needed that some days. And it was something that she, again, the work ethic that, you know, that it's kind of an old school work ethic that, you know, she taught us and the whole grants program. I know they got a lot of new people up there right now, and they're lucky to still have her working. And I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I thought, you know, we were going to be able to honor her as a retiree, but I think her dedication to this place is just keeping her going. And so I really hope that we can surprise her again someday. Maybe Tuesday we'll call her down here and tell her where there's a mistake with one of her applications, and she'll be here in 2 minutes. So it's just it's an honor to even be able to speak about her. She is someone that I really look up to, and you know, a lot of her family as well. So thank you, Tom, for allowing me to do that.
Give my round of applause for Charlene, please. Our last honoree this morning is back to education. It has to go for, you know, that kind of a person that's done 120% and given back and raise money, grants, whatever, but students related. So I'm going to ask Jennifer again to talk about her last honoree.
Before I call him down, I'll just read a little bit about him. David Spear. So David's work has impacted the lives of Indian students on the Flathead Reservation for over 20 years. He spent most of his time here working at the only all-Indian school teaching photography. David and his wife Jill formed a nonprofit, and he raised all of his own money to teach his classes at Two Eagle. He has also raised money to send Two Eagle students to New York, Maine, and New Mexico. Because of David, students from here have shown their photography in all of those places, as well as nationally renowned photography magazine, in books, and in local and national and international venues. Because of David, the artistic works of students from here has made their mark in the world and has traveled to places that these kids could never have imagined. David has opened up the world to kids from here. And I used to work in suicide prevention, and I learned that the most important thing we can do to negate the effects of trauma is to have a connection with someone else. David's presence at Two Eagle does this. He is consistently there year after year, helping students see the beauty in their environment and in themselves. David's work gives students a way to have a voice and to express themselves. And it gives them a way to be heard and a way to be seen. He is here for them because he is there for them because those kids deserve as many people as possible to be there for them. And David works with some of the most vulnerable people, the most vulnerable students, and he gives them the best service. And he is a high caliber photographer in his own right, and a high caliber teacher, and he gives them the best of the best by being there. And we are beyond fortunate to have someone of David's caliber here, working with our kids, helping our kids. And there's so much power in what David does, because so few people, so few Indian kids especially, ever have an adult look at them and take an interest in what they do and what they think and how they feel. And David changes lives with his work. So thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Come on up. All right. Well, if we could ask the drum to do an honor song for all of our honorees up here. And really, again, want to thank everybody. dim lamps. Okay, we're gonna take a break, but we'll have a presentation by Gregory Spar on some financial items and then Mark Mature on land acquisitions. So we will take a break.
Hey, turn this off.
Okay, we'll come back into session after our break. And our next item up is Gregory Spar from our administrative team to give a financial update. So Greg, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members of council. I'll begin sharing my screen now. Can you all see?
Video.
Yes.
All right. So today I'm prepared to provide for the quarterly meeting a financial update from the Director of Financial Management's position. Today, I'm going to speak about the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, provide the outlook of the financial strength of the organization, and touch on the water compact. So Tribal Council has adopted a balanced budget effective using Resolution 22-135 for the upcoming fiscal year of 2023. And the total approved expenditures are $187,484,542. This amount combines compacted obligations, tribal health obligations through the IHS commitments, Indian Affairs obligations, as well as funding to meet the programmatic needs of the organization. It reflects council's responsiveness to members' needs. It does not include any federal grants, state grants, or alternative funding sources. Some of the highlights from the budget this year include the increased per capita distributions that will begin in December, increasing the total of to $1,500 per year in 3 $500 payments. It reflects the increase to the Tribal Elder Assistance Program beginning in January of 2023 in the amount of $600. It includes the increased burial allowance to keep pace with some of the rising costs that we've seen in our economic situation. One of the biggest increases in the upcoming fiscal year is a contribution or a commitment to capital investment in our infrastructure. There is a $9.8 million budget for maintenance and building upgrades. And in general terms, it increases all of the budgets across the board by an average of 5%. During the budget development process, we encourage programs that were receiving tribal funded dollars to include work plans for the upcoming fiscal year that were budgeted around what we call SMART goals that are specific, that are measurable, that are achievable, that are realistic and time bound. We additionally ask the programs to cast for us a 2 to 5 year arc of what they intend to accomplish in the upcoming time periods. The emphasis was put to also include the guiding resolutions of the organization, to include culture and language in everything we do, to eradicate homelessness, to addressing food sovereignty, to improving mental health, to eradicating addiction, finding the right earning opportunity for members, and encouraging member-owned business development across the reservation. Additionally, we challenged all of the programs to work sustainability into their budgets so that they were working within the parameters that council had set for them in this upcoming fiscal year and not extending beyond what had been provided for them in the upcoming budget. And that will be a recurring theme for all of those engagements going forward in the fiscal year.
Yeah, go ahead. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg, I think if you go back to that slide, you read out the 7 important issues that we have. I think we're adding to that, aren't we, Mr. Chair, in terms of global warming? And hopefully that gets added into that as well.
Thank you, sir. I'll make that addition.
Thanks, Mike.
Can you send this to us?
I can make it available to council. Yes, ma'am. So this is a categorical allocation of the budget. I'd like to draw your attention to the columns on the column at the left, which is reflective of the allocation of 3 particular areas: permanent funding, mandatory funding, and discretionary funding. Permanent funding indicates the things that council has indicated they want to make permanent in their ongoing year-over-year evaluation. Mandatory categories include things that are compacted and required to carry out. Those would be here in the left-hand side, the administration or the operations of the organization. The tribal health is a compacted organization. As we move from right to left, you'll see the settlement fund includes the Clark Fork remediation and some of the ARCO settlement dollars, and they'll be spent in that capacity through the Natural Resources Department. You'll see the Indian Affairs column, the Indian Affairs Self-Governance column, and all of the expenditures there. You'll see the Tribal Health column or IHS column and the funds being allocated to support members' health needs. It is important to note here at the bottom of this column where there's 30 million allocated, you'll see over here in the left under the third party collection that 16.6 million complements Tribal Health's budget in order to help them meet the needs of the organization. You'll see here in a column of water compact, you'll see that's heavily nested in our Natural Resources Department to the tune of almost $32 million. That is for rehabilitation and betterment. You'll see down here, this $8.5 million is allocated toward the implementation of the water pack compact itself. You'll see here on the left-hand side, the government services amount of $12.7 million includes the previously mentioned $9.8 million commitment towards the improvement of the physical structures, whether that be the improvement of HVAC or making sure that roofs and other capital, our buildings are at the most efficient way that they can be, and they're not showing deterioration. Next, I'd like to touch on the financial strength of the organization. I'm going to show you some combined balances of the organization exclusive of the water compact funds. I want you to know that at the heart of the financial management group is the fiduciary standard, where we're managing money and finances on behalf of the organization in a prudent manner and consistent with what is called Section 162A. Section 162A requires that the assets that are being invested on behalf of the organization are held in government securities or government-backed securities or FDIC insured investments. We'll talk a little bit about the categories of funds that are restricted and non-restricted. Restricted funds are ones that are tied specifically to certain obligations of the organization. If there are BIA or IHS received funds, those must be invested in such a manner and allocated and spent in such a manner that is consistent with the obligations of those departments. So much of those are expected to be expended within the calendar year. And so they are restricted funds that are in short-term assets that can be liquidated and provided for the support and the ongoing expenditures of the programs. Some of those programs, if you can imagine funds that are allocated for a construction project, they might have a 2 to 5 year time horizon. And so if we have the funds available at the beginning of that commitment, our responsibility would be to make sure that they're invested in such a manner that they complement the construction schedule so that they're not just laying fallow in cash during an 18-month or 24-month construction schedule. So we try to match the funds and their intended expenses with the underlying investments, making sure that they're secure, making sure that they meet the requirements of 162A, that they're earning interest in the best possible manner under those restrictions over the time in which the anticipated project is planned. So we consider restricted and non-restricted assets as different buckets. Non-restricted assets would be for example, settlement funds where the intended expenditure lasts 2 to 5 years or may even last beyond the horizon. We've entered into some settlements where we're doing some mitigation on the reservation, and some of those funds are allocated in a manner to be 5 years, 10 years and beyond. And the language I use is to be allocated beyond the horizon where we might not be able to see, but to provide a benefit, to provide that funds available to do that mitigation in the future. So the numbers I'll be giving you are as of the close of business, September 30th. We close our fiscal year at the end of September 30th of 2022. These are unaudited numbers, but they are a estimate of our statements. The total CSKT portfolio right now is $394,818,677. And I've illustrated here that they are primarily 63% in what would be considered restricted funds. Unrestricted funds represent about 145.5 million and represent 37% of the overall portfolio. Further illustrating here is the breakdown of how those funds are held currently for the organization. The restricted funds, again, representing about $250 million, are allocated about 10% in banks. That 24.7 million is fully FDIC insured. The relationships that we have with financial institutions allow us to have a cap of $35 million worth of FDIC insurance in our banks because of the agreements that we have with repurchase agreements on the books. About 18% of the funds are in insured cash sweeps, also protected fully by the FDIC insurance that is provided. We have a cap there of up to 100 million available, and we use that as a liquid reserve for any unanticipated opportunities that come up that we need to have liquidity available, where we cannot keep ourselves under the $35 million cap. The balance, or 72% as of the close of business, are invested in our investment relationships in government securities, U.S. Treasury bills, bonds, and notes, and any other government-backed securities that meet the obligations of 162A, so that we can have them in a fully protected as well as a fully liquidable position within the accounts. Our unrestricted funds represent 145 million, and we have them allocated in a similar fashion between our banks and ICS accounts. But we have a majority of those funds, as you see there, about almost 90% in the investment portfolios, because they might be allocated for a little bit longer period of time or in a more diversified holdings position. So I'd like to speak with you briefly here about the allocation of the unrestricted funds. We mentioned that represents about 145 million of the organization's wealth. There's about 75% of those assets in fixed income that represents U.S. government bills, bonds, and notes that are intended for full protection of the U.S. government and the agencies that support that. There's only a small percentage, $201,000, invested in an instrument that we would call a bond fund. There's about 4%, or about 3.4 million, invested in what would be called high yield securities. They would be securities that are legacy securities in the portfolio. They're a diversified portfolio of telecommunications funds that generate very nice yields to the organization. And those are primarily in some of the long-term settlement funds, where the organization can sustain a little bit of ups and downs in the principal value of those bonds, but reaps the reward of the better than market income generated by those instruments. You'll note here that there's about a 5% allocation to equities. That is part of our settlement trust for the Bonneville Power assessment or settlement stewardship account there, that we're allocated beyond the horizon. Some of the ups and downs in the marketplace that you may read about or hear about on the news do impact that portfolio. But I'd want to focus here that they represent a small slice of the overall portfolio. They represent 5% of the unrestricted assets of the organization. From an investment standpoint, as the market moves up and down, we are slowly moving into that diversified portfolio. And because it's a beyond the horizon type of account, my opinion is that we'll be buying these in small chunks at lower prices as the market, or should the market, continue to move down. And you'll note here that there's about a 16% allocation to cash for liquidity needs and to continue to reinvest into the rising interest rate environment. I'd like to speak a little bit about the Water Compact, known as the Montana Water Rights Protection Act, or Division DD. This is a piece of legislation that was passed in December of 2022. And there are two significant components to it. There is certainly a financial component, and then there is also a performance component. I'll talk about both in my presentation today. The financial component is comprised of mandatory distributions that come to the tribe in the tune of $90 million, beginning in 2021 and lasting through 2030, for a total of $900 million in that particular mandatory portion. There's also a discretionary distribution amount built into the legislation of $1 billion. On May 19th of 2022, the bipartisan infrastructure legislation allowed for that $1 billion to be released to the tribal organization. It is being held currently in the SQK Trust at the Bureau of Trust Funds Administration, as is described in the Act. Each and every one of the distributions that the tribe receives is subject to indexing, and that is a calculation based on 3 indexes: the Consumer Price Index, the Producer Price Index, and the Bureau of Reclamation's Consumer Construction Trends Index that's published on a quarterly basis. And we, through negotiations with the BTFA, calculate what that indexing amount is all the way back to the December 27th date. And it is an applicable indexing amount added onto any amounts received by the tribes in the course of the distribution period. We'll talk a little bit about how it's invested. We'll also talk about the performance component, which is the requirements written into the Act of how the tribal organization is required to do certain things and spend the money to accomplish those things. The assets are currently separated into 3 buckets: the SQK Trust, the Compact Account, and the Settlement Trust. Each one of these buckets of money is restricted and required to use 162A government-backed securities. Again, that would be U.S. Treasury bills, bonds, and notes, or any other agencies of the federal government that would be appropriate and registered under the 162A Act. There may be an opportunity for us to invest in FDIC insured instruments, provided that they are competitive and provided that they provide for us the right amount of protection within that. But I have a meeting each and every Tuesday morning with BTFA where we discuss the allocation and the intended the movement in the marketplace and how these funds should be and can be best invested. Cumulative expenditures based on the activities performed to date total $4.3 million. So what that would reflect is the activities of the Department of Engineering and Water Resources under the Natural Resources NRD department. They are principally responsible for carrying out the implementation of the Water Compact, and their expenses through September 30th would represent about $4.3 million of expenses to date. You may recall that we mentioned earlier that the Water Compact budget for the upcoming fiscal year in 2023 is $40 million. There are a calendar of anticipated accomplishments for this to be implemented and completed. And the stance I've taken is that this is a generational endeavor, that there are things across the reservation that the Water Compact is designed to improve and promote and restore and rehabilitate. And so that there is an ongoing, I would call it a generational approach to tackling these performance objectives.
Greg, just real quickly, do you have examples of some of the projects for that period for this upcoming year?
I do.
Maybe I can wait my questions at the end. I don't.
I'll follow you, lead, sir. If you'd like, I can address them at the end, or I can address them as you.
Well, maybe right now.
All right. So they're working currently in the Jocko delivery area in a rehab and betterment. They're currently in the final phase of design, and they're getting ready to complete that. They're working in the North Fork, the Jocko diversion dam, and the Tabor Feeder Canal liner. Part of the rehabilitation and betterment will be spreading across the reservation's footprint. I see rehab and betterment on their calendar in the Jocko Lower J Canal diversion area. I know that in the upcoming projects for fiscal year, they're working in the Camas service area. They're working on water conservation and canal liner projects. So these are all some of what is on the bill for the upcoming fiscal year, as well as some of the ongoing projects that begin after the irrigation season subsides. Part of the commitment of the Water Compact is to make sure that throughout the FIP irrigation project, there's water for irrigators during the irrigation season, and then they are scheduling their work to begin when it doesn't disrupt the FIP's commitments to provide water to the irrigators on the reservation. So as I'm indicating here, this is an explanation or a demonstration of the indexing component on the mandatory distributions. As I've indicated here, the baseline here are the $90 million anticipated mandatory funding obligations in the Act itself. In the first year, we received 4.4 million of additional indexing dollars based on how the CPI, PPI, and the Bureau of Reclamation performance indexes changed. On the year 2 distribution, we received $90 million and an additional $11.9 million in indexing amounts. We're entering into the third year here in fiscal 23, but I've indicated here a hypothetical 5% indexing calculation to be applied over the balance of the year 3 through 10, just to give you an example that if we have continued rising costs associated with the 3 indexes, the indicative value here would be 16, 20, 38, almost 47.5, $48 million. These indexing components were written into the act. They are a long-term benefit for the organization because as the cost of implementing some of the performance restrictions or requirements in the compact itself, as the cost of doing those things increases, the forethought was placed into the negotiation of the act here to provide for there to be rising resources available for those accomplishments in the upcoming years and beyond. As I mentioned before, the budget for this upcoming fiscal year is nearly $40 million. Some of those projects may be completed in a 6-month window or a 12-month window, and some may be beyond. The commitment I have when working with the NRD is to make sure that we allocate the funds in the accounts themselves in a manner consistent with what they believe their anticipated draws will be, so that the money can continue to be invested in working on behalf of the organization and then be liquid as they reach certain draw dates or accomplishment dates on the projects that they're tackling. And I've indicated the objective here is this is a generational endeavor. So written into the act itself here under section 8, under the SQK settlement trust funds, we have what are called the uses. The act itself enumerates these uses, saying the tribes may use the amounts of the trust allocated for compact, the law of administration in this act for the following purposes. They may use to be carried out the activities described in subsection B and C, which is rehab and betterment, focused mostly on construction and work in the field. Additionally, we are using some of those funds right now for the administration and the implementation and the management of the water rights. You might note that we're working together with the Water Rights Registration Office to make sure that our appropriate matching funding with the state is accomplished in order for that to be up and running on behalf of the organization. We can implement water rights. We can construct and rehabilitate livestock and fencing within the reservation. We can mitigate and control noxious weeds. We can plan, design, and build irrigation systems by land served by the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project, install screens and barriers. We can plan and design irrigation facilities within the reservation that is not currently served by the project itself. We can plan, design, and construct. We can develop cultural resource programs related to the permitting necessary to conduct the activities authorized under this subsection. It's worth noting that I've been encouraging all the programs and the legacy programs that do some of these cultural activities to work together with the Water Compact to design programs around unlocking these compact dollars to help support and serve some of the cultural programs on the reservation. So these are the described or prescribed uses in the act for the Water Compact dollars. The question I hear frequently is, when can it be spent? And so the section here this is section 10 of the act, and I'll forward it around to the group here for your review. It talks about 6 enforceability activities or 6 milestones that must be completed before some of those activities in section 8H may be performed. And to date, 3 of those 6 requirements have been met. Some that we're waiting on are the Montana State Legislature to appropriate some of their obligation to the program. We're waiting for an approval and a decree from the Montana Water Court. And we're also waiting for a final notice from the Secretary on fulfilling some of the concerns associated with the storage and allocation of Hungry Horse Reservoir dollars or Hungry Horse Reservoir acre feet of water. So I do not have a timeline on those. I would defer to our legal team who is interacting with them on those, but those are the remaining three things that must be completed in order for these activities to become unlocked on behalf of the Water Compact Funding Act. So
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Greg, you said when the money can be spent. But the money's there. We just have to satisfy those other three issues. Can we borrow against that money?
I don't have the answer off the top of my head. My first inclination is to say that we cannot hypothecate or pledge dollars that are not yet under the ownership of the tribe because of these three things that have yet to be met, but I can look into finding that answer for you. Thank you for the question. So here's a summary of what this means for membership in the reservation itself. Much of the water compact that is performance related relates to the rehabilitation and the betterment of the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project infrastructure. The infrastructure is in various needs of improvement. The money in the compact is designed to improve headworks, distribution canals, gates, and to provide support to the safety of dam programs and any improvements that might be needed. I believe there are 15 dams in the Flathead Indian Irrigation distribution network that are part of the scope of what must be addressed under the compact itself. The funding itself is designed to accomplish all of those things and to replace what historically had been, for example, the safety of dams division of BIA provided ongoing funding that had been allocated for certain safety of dams work. But the BIA has indicated that this money in the compact is now designed to accomplish the rehab and betterment of the dams that are inside of the Flathead Irrigation Project itself. So the funding is designed to support those activities of rehabilitation and betterment of those distribution networks.
Hey, Carol.
The ones that we've already done construction on, I know Black Lake has some issues, but I think that was one that was done and there's others. So do we go back and do more work on those, or are those set aside and completed?
I'll have to look specifically at the project that you mentioned, but I know that in our current fiscal year, moving from last fiscal year into this current fiscal year, there are certain projects that are what I would characterize as legacy projects, where there has already been an appeal for funding to complete and funds have been distributed to the organization in order to complete the work on specific projects. And they're being segregated and continuing to use the prior funding that was made available to complete those jobs under some of the earmarked assets on the prior page. And that there will be a new line in the sand for new projects that come online that are related specifically to the water compact.
Rather than Black Lake, look at Crow Dam, because that's one it's just getting completed, right? And so I'm just wondering if there's more work to be done downstream, upstream, whatever.
I do know that the current BIA earmarked funds that are allocated for the Crow Dam project, I'm very familiar with the funding that has been allocated for the Crow Dam spillway and the completion of those. That appears from glancing at my notes here, that appears to be a legacy project that was identified prior, where the funding has been received in order to accomplish that. So part of what this will, an additional component of this is the restoration, that there will be a restoration of habitat that was decimated or polluted after the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project was created in the first half of last century. As the improvements are made to some of the area, we foresee water being restored back to certain areas in order to restore the areas where wildlife, fish, flora, and fauna can be restored and returned to those areas that had been dried up as a result of the diversion of water. We also anticipate there being an improvement to the distribution network of water and in a manner that the tribes decide, not someone else. We believe that using modern equipment and efficiencies to distribute water across the reservation, that there's a component that there will be efficiencies gained there, and some of that water that is saved in that distribution network will be returned. And it also is designed to protect the tribe's right to determine how the resources are used on the reservation.
Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking long-term, legacy-wise, when you seal and repair those canals that have previously been leaking for many years, they've created wetlands in areas below those, especially along the missions here. Is there going to be any compensation for that? I mean, you wouldn't create those canals to leak again, but you've taken away those wetlands. There should be some compromise or something put in there to offset the loss of those wetlands that you wouldn't restore.
Thank you for the question, Councilman Pitts. I'll admit to not being part of the engineering staff or the hydrology staff or the actual water management group, but I do know that in the ramp up to the settlement and in some of my interactions with the Department of Engineering and Water Resources, they are certainly taking into consideration what has the impact of any modernization will have on the associated or the surrounding areas. And I'm sure that that is on their radar for consideration. And I'll make sure to bring that up in our next conversation. Thank you. So in review, we've talked about the budget for 2023. It is balanced and it reflects council's responsiveness to members' needs. The financial strength, I believe, us to be sound, conservative, and well-positioned for the organization now and into the future. We've talked about the tribes receiving some funding, 2 of the 10 mandatory distributions, and we've received the discretionary amount. We are presenting a letter to the government for the indexing amount, and we anticipate that coming. You might note that the federal government is on a continuing resolution through the middle of December, so that may play a role in how in which they allocate, but they have acknowledged that we are anticipating an indexing amount. We've talked a little bit about the enforceability milestones that are built into the water compact, and I'll make sure that I distribute to each and every one of you a copy again of the section DD for your review. And we've discussed the uses. Thank you for your time this morning.
Well, quickly, Greg, the interest from the accounts, is it limited the same way as far as uses?
So in reading the act, the interest that is earned on the portfolio stays in the account in which it's earned, and it would be used in accordance with the act itself. It doesn't come out of the account into a separate bucket. It is designed to be invested and to grow and to provide additional value for the completion of some of the performance of the compact itself. So it stays in the accounts.
There's another question we typically get is like the dividend disbursements that we have. There's no language in there for this to be a direct disbursement to the membership.
It does not. There is no language in the act that provides for disbursement to membership.
One of the when Terry brings up the issue for, as we clean this system up and we make it tight and we're really water efficient, there are provisions for that habitat loss where the century of leakage is caused, man-made wetlands or water courses. The same thing goes for actually some shallow wells that are domestic wells, and so there's could be a direct impact there. So that's all part of being creative in the future. Having our membership participate on some of these issues and bringing forward the best thing we can to to expend the funds appropriately in the future. So a lot of folks just need to be a squeaky wheel and make sure they bring forward some of these items. I know that in the community that I live in Ronan, there was tremendous interest with the canal system that's there that doesn't necessarily, I'm sure it has leaks in it, that we lose so much in the movement of the water conveyance of the water out into the irrigated cropland. But the ditches provide a very significant habitat for mosquitoes and other waterborne insects that can carry diseases, et cetera. And they run right through the heart of the town, right through the school. And so there's a great advantage for some of these as far as safety for kids getting into ditches, mosquito diseases, et cetera, whether it's West Nile or any other type of disease, is to just to pipe those and bury those ditches and provide some improvement. So there's noise like that that would be beneficial for the tribal membership to bring forward whenever they can. You know, and the severance from so much time and how we've lost some of our connectivity to the landscape, it goes to language, it goes to a lot of things. So a lot of cultural aspects of this that need to be restored. So we really encourage our membership to bring those topics forward also. So any questions, other questions or statements from council? If not, Greg, thank you. Go ahead, Terry.
On the slide prior to this one, maybe it was 1 or 2, I thought I saw something about when you had the 13 up there. I thought there was something about land purchases or something, land. What was that? What I'm kind of dreaming about is kind of like when we try to get a settlement, we can't, there's always amount of dollars that get agreed upon, but then getting that money down the road, it seems like it's always tied up or there's always snags or problems with it. And I think that's where some of the discussion of exchanging for some of that stuff, the state pieces. And so I was kind of wondering here if somehow we would be in a position to exchange some of these wetlands that get lost for picking up some agriculture land rather than dollars having to be spent. So I was just kind of not making it clear. I thought I saw something here about purchase of lands, but I won't hold this up anymore. I'll have to look through this. Thank you.
Sir, it would be my pleasure to forward you a copy of this and to have that discussion at your convenience.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, you know, I think might be helpful in reference to this is maybe defining what restricted and unrestricted, and I don't even know if that's possible in reference to this budget, but can you go back to the very first page that you had with the budget? Right there, okay. You go down and you look at governmental services, 800,000, and then mandatory governmental service, 12 million. And then you go down to discretionary governmental services, 4 million. Okay, if people were to look at that and they looked at maybe last year's or the year before budget, how do I has the government grown so much that we have massive increases, or are we now doing more services because of the resolutions, or what's going on there? So I can tell them.
So this page is included in the resolution 22-135, and starting from the top, the government services, the increase to 840, that is the estimate of the elders payment that has been identified as a permanent commitment by this council. The next government operating of 750 allocation is specifically a placeholder for the intended burial allowance in the upcoming fiscal year. We use that as a placeholder. The $2 million represents an allocation for any land purchases that council chooses to engage with. And the $12 million is an expected allocation of the
Okay, I'm just talking about government services in each one of those.
Yes, yes, ma'am. And in the 12,000,007, that is reflective of the $9.8 million allocation towards the commitment to improvement and improvement of the facilities across the organization.
Okay,
And I can certainly provide for you more
no,
detail
I think that's
in
good
other
enough. I
slides.
mean, I should understand this beyond just looking at one row, one figure. It kind of explains it after you started talking about it. So really, it's just a matter of getting up to speed on how to explain it. Oh, do you have a Tuesday packet for me?
I,
Oh, okay. I wasn't here on Tuesday.
I'll make sure that you have everything that you need, and I'm happy to continue to have these conversations at your convenience. My pleasure to serve, ma'am.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
We will have a land presentation quickly before lunch, but Len has one more item before before you start, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I'll just take a few seconds here. I just wanted to acknowledge something that I think we need to do at all of our quarterly meetings is acknowledge our veterans. We have war veterans and that are with us right now, and I want to acknowledge Dan Matt Decker. He's an Iraqi war veteran that served in Iraq. Some years, I forget what the years ago, but and then we have Bernie Azure. Bernie is a Vietnam veteran that I always want to acknowledge, and then George Ducharme. And if there's any others that I missed, I just wanted to and Bing. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge all of our veterans and thank them all for our service. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Len. All right, well, they're setting up for lunch. You're up, Mark. See how fast you can go. You got a lot of paraphernalia exhibits there. I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. I am setting up some mapping right now of the land status over the forming of the reservation in 1855. So, and to where we are presently. I got them in the right order. And if you guys can see them in individuals in Zoom land.
I think the Owl's catching most of them except for the one closest to Jim. Maybe if they crowd that way. Yeah, that way. There you go. That helps. We're missing the one, but we can imagine when it's all green. Yes.
Correct. The one furthest to my left over here is the forming of the reservation in 1855 after the Hellgate Treaty, and when it was all of the reservation was 100% owned, tribally owned. So the progression of these, as you can see, the second map here, the first one on the screen, is right after the Allotment Act, allotment of 1908. All the orange parcels were the individual trusts that were handed out at the time, and the forming of the Bison Range at that moment in purple. 1910, after the homesteads happened, as you can see, the vast amount of the valleys left trust property and went into individual ownership, private fee lands. And the only trust properties that the tribes owned at that time are the green, and then the individuals are the ones who had the orange.
Mark, is that also the time the state trust lands came into play?
Yes. Right around that time when the state trust lands came in, and those will be the gray parcels on the maps from there on. As the map directly behind me, from 22 to 35, they had another allotments were set up with the tribes. A secondary allotment are the darker brown to give other tribal members to the ability to have their own land ownership that missed out on the first round of allotments. So as we progress through, then and after 1935 up to currently, but after 1935, what ended up happening, I don't have a map of it, but is when the allottees could sell their parcels off. And as you see, the Mission Valley and the Jocko Valley have really changed view from all of the orange parcels into the white shades, and that is the loss of trust properties of individuals. They sold those properties, and the tribes did not have the financial capacity at that time to be purchasing all back. Then there was another act passed where we had the
Just one
opportunity.
point of clarity in that period that I think is worth mentioning is that a lot of individual members were lost their property to debt.
Correct.
So there was a lot of folks that were allowed to get store credit or other things, and then it was basically taken from them.
So as Chairman McDonald said, it was due to debt and to get out of debt, or they took parcels of land from tribal members to cover that debt for them. If it wasn't the whole piece at one time, it could be over small chunks of that property over time to take and get that debt repaid. As of then, you move forward, and the tribes had the ability to start purchasing properties back. And as you see, the mountain ranges is a really good indicator right here through the river corridor. That was just the river corridor is what the tribes owned at that time. Over the years since 1935, you notice that the Salish Mountain Range, Ferry Basin area, the middle of the reservation, has continually been being purchased back and aggressively getting properties back the tribes have over the years. The tribal councils, past and present, have always been aggressively, I'd say they're the most aggressive tribe buying properties back through all tribal funding. It's not out of government funding or anything. It is straight out of the tribal dividends that they put forth for acquisition at a set rate every year. Currently, we still are buying lands back as long as budget permits. The progression of these is very astounding, is from when we went from 100% to where we're at now. We were at 100%, and then after the allotment acts and everything that it went through, the tribes at one point were only roughly about 30 to 40% owners of our own reservation. To date, right now, the tribes have purchased properties back over the years, and we are now sitting at 66% ownership of our homelands that were originally all ours. So we're back at 66. And like I said, that we have been aggressively looking at properties when they are brought forth to the tribes. The tribal council has made the recommendations for us to pursue the development now of a better management, focusing property management, bringing in the properties with a better queue for the council to be looking at for best uses for our membership or our programs, to be able to purchase these properties and which properties are the ones that we're going to be looking at extensively throughout the years. If anybody ever wants to come and take a look, we do have these displayed down at the Tribal Lands Conference Room. They are in the wall, they're on the walls in a progression around there to current 2022 status is what we see on the far left over here. You cannot see it on the screen that well, but as you notice, the Bison Range area is green now. That is in tribal trust. Plus, we do have our designated areas of our primitive areas and our tribal members only areas identified on the new 2022 land status map. The current, like I did say, the current percentage is 66%, but to make it more understandable, instead of just percentage, there is 1,318,583.5 acres encompassed in the reservation and the tribally owned lands. That is tribal trust, tribal fee, individual trust, fee lands, state lands, federal lands, and the water. Out of that 1.3 million, the tribes to date have 874,310.78 acres in trust status, if it is in tribal trust, individual trust, or fee and water. That's what we have now. And it was a big jump since 2012 to current, with a big bonus of the 19,000 acres of getting transitioned over from the Bison Range to the tribes for ownership. But since 2012, we've increased the land base by 32,284.78 acres. With this is including 1,139.5 roughly acres, approximately acres off reservation ownership. That's property down in the Bitterroot. There's property in Kalispell, property in the Sealy Swan area, and so forth.
Go ahead. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Mark, in regards to the state land sections, when those revert to tribal ownership, are they automatically going to go to tribal trust status? Or do we have to make application for every one of those parcels to get into trust again?
That is a good question. That was brought up at some of the meetings that we had at the beginning. I know Dan Decker is in the office. In the crowd here, and he may be able to answer that better, but we at the meeting did not get a clear answer if those were automatically going to be transitioned over into trust, such as the Bison Range did. We are hoping that would happen. Otherwise, it is a longer drawn out process to get those into tribal ownership.
Okay, so with a severed title, would that hinder the trust process?
I do know that when we were down at the meeting, that same question was brought up, severing the title from mineral rights and such. That was a question brought up to the group, and I know that the legal department was there, and one of the staff attorneys is the one heading this negotiation side really for the tribes. And we were questioning that same thing, does that hinder us in any way? And we haven't got a clear answer yet to find out if we can even do that with a separate title.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
One thing else we'd like to talk about is under the ownerships of the property for all of our recreationalists, hunters, fishers, hikers, and so forth, that we do have a lot of new programs and apps and stuff out there readily at hand on our smartphones or anything. And one of the, a lot of them, they get onto these hunting apps or anything else to show ownership so they can know whose property they're going on. One thing that I would like to make sure that not everybody understood out there was that when that happens, they need to make sure that they do know that if it is individual trust or if it is tribal trust or tribal ownership. On those apps, it just says CSKT or USA in trust and so forth. But that doesn't indicate if it's an individual landowner, because that individual landowner for that trust property, that's their private land, and they need authorization from those landowners to enter those allotments. And we do see a lot more of that now with these hunting apps where individuals are going out and getting onto individual trust properties and having arguments with the landowners. So definitely want to always make sure people know that. Another thing that's kind of about the land status and selling and buying properties also of individual trust parcels, there are criteria out there that the individual seller has to, or buyer, they need to be doing And that starts with our land office. There are brokers out there that can assist these individuals doing all of their due diligence and steps to get it done, but they need to be all working through the lands department. It's a service that our department does. We are not paid by the buyers or sellers to do this work. It is our daily task for our membership to purchase and sell their properties, to buy and sell them. We want to make sure that our membership does know that to anytime they're doing that, if it's an improvement, a home site, or trying to buy individual trust property, they come to our office and start the paperwork. Because there are timeframes that have to happen through the BIA and through our department that aren't out there on the fee transactions like they are here. We have our due diligence and our fiduciary duties with the BIA to follow those procedures. So if any of our membership, and if you have any constituents out there that talk to you about selling their property, please let them come to our office and let them know to start that process with us so we can try to get these done in the best timely manner as we can, following those guidances through the BIA.
Thank you, Mark, for reminding us of that, because we don't want people, to waste their resources, their limited resources, paying for some services that are, of course, required by you to perform and are provided free of service to our membership. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Are there any other questions on land status or acquisitions for
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, I was wondering what we would need to do to maybe put an asterisk on those maps of privately owned trust ground, because I know there's a tribal member out at Moise and they own this ground, and these out of town area come in and pheasant hunt. He said they get sprayed with their bird shots, and they get into quite a few arguments. And I was just wondering if, when they pull zaps up, if they would identify that if there's an asterisk there, that or something, so those people know that that's privately owned, they have to have permission.
I will have to do more research on that, but as of right now, it's not, because it's just through the, they'll use like the county parcel maps, cadastral type graphing on it. What ends up happening is that it will just say USA and Trust or CSKT and Trust. And it doesn't say or break out individuals for ownership. I don't know how, without following through, if it's going to be any kind of a BIA regulation that it might be breaking by putting them out there that way, but we can definitely always take a look at that to try to assist our membership better.
And then one other topic that's kind of off this topic, and maybe we don't even want to answer that, but I know on the Chauncey piece, you guys hayed that last year, and the price of hay, that was a pretty good income coming back to the tribes. I remember Bud had went back and met with the money people, the mitigation, and there was some flexibility on some of those mitigation grounds. Like you take there to Johnson's at Ravalli, and you go all the way up to the Moss Ranch up there past Dixon, that if we went in and hayed those pieces and sold that hay, it'd be a thought. But I've often thought that that was kind of a missed opportunity to generate some funding for the lands.
I can't answer that. Actually, Chairman McDonald might be able to answer that one better than me on those mitigation lands, because each one has its own management plan, what you can and can't do on them. So each parcel is totally unique in their own management. So it's tough to say we can do it. It might be only on certain ones you could do it, if at all. So, I mean, that would be a bigger talk with the Natural Resource Department and my office to just see if those are plans that could even be developed.
Yeah, that's correct, Terry. So it depends on the funding source. Bonneville limitations are different than our SKQ dam mitigation limitations, and ours are different, the Atlantic Richfield classifications. So some are actually prohibited. Others could be some creative things, but basically the intent is that they're managed for those fish and wildlife values first and foremost. There was not a conflicting interest. There might be a possibility, but the BPA ones are pretty restricted. If that's what you're talking about. Just a reminder for the other issue, Terry, is that in our regulations, we allow for people to post the land closed, so it's individual trust. Like we used to do down at Post Creek for our ranch is put up signs, no hunting. That's the most efficient way to do it.
Yes, and then also if it continues after any signage or anything up is get a hold of the tribal rangers, Dan McClure in their office to let them know so they can patrol it harder. With that, that's all.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions for Mark? Thank you. We look forward to a lot of movement in the future. So now we're at the lunch break. So if I could maybe ask Jimmy, would you do a blessing for lunch?
Grandfather, we call on you today to join us, to bless this food that we're about to receive. Bless these hands that prepared it. We ask you for your guidance and for safe travels for everyone going home. We ask for your blessings. Amen.
See food in the back. Grab two. We'll come back after you eat, see if there's any other membership that wants to comment and closing remarks. So please don't leave. Well, we'll get started up in 5 minutes. I know everybody has a busy day ahead of them. We'll do it right now. In 2 minutes. As soon as Ellie and Len come back, and Martin's in the room already, so. I know. Gotta get the media there. I get Mr. Checks and Balance, Bernie there. Nobody signed up? I would like to ask council before you leave, after we adjourn our meeting today, if I could meet with you in the conference room here. So we'll come back into session after lunch break, and I would like to open the floor to any membership, if there's anybody that would like to say anything that's here in the crowd today. Come on, Bernie. Seeing no comments? Doreen?
Doreen, come on.
Any words of wisdom for us? Any issues you have, Doreen? All right, we'll take that as it's a sign of approval. Okay. Closing comments from any council members? Well, thank you, Carol. Martin?
Just because I'd be remiss to not bring it up. COVID is still here. We are into the season where we're congregating more, so please make sure you're safe out there, especially Monday when we're around elders and our cultural keepers, and make sure that we are taking precautions if we're sick, and just being safe out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, we just wanted to put a plug in for in Kusum. The kids are today they're making their own regalia for dance outfits today, and Ellen Pierre is helping adults make regalia. So it's, it's a good thing they're doing for themselves and for people in general, just to get them started. And I got 4 great grandchildren going to school there. That's pretty awesome.
That's cool. Hopefully some of them show up down to the Bird Tracks Bridge event. I want to put a plug in for Mac Day's fishing event. That's this weekend. Good weather. Get out there and calm water, catch some non-native lake trout, win some money. I also want to put a plug in for the Mission Valley Live Performing Arts season. Tonight is the Japanese Masters of Drumming, and that's in Polson High School Auditorium. You have some tickets, free tickets right there. That's always fun. That's powerful when they just, I've been to them before, and it's pretty amazing. I am gonna go to it. So it's at the Polson High School Auditorium. Carol, do you have something?
Yeah, one more thing. You know, when we were having election last time around, I know Ron Vick asked about election judges and how, if they could be appointed for the next election. And I don't recall how council felt about that, but I was just wondering, I know Rick was handling the election rules, so I'm not sure where that's at or if that's even a part of the discussion. That we would council members would no longer sit as election judges. It would be a independent board that would, review we would review the regs and approve them, but they would go through the election stuff and make sure everybody's qualified, along with an attorney. I'm wondering, is that something that's in the works or not?
I don't know, but we can check on it. Do you know, Mike? No.
Maybe nobody's interested. I guess that's the question, Mr. Chair. If nobody's interested in doing that now, I am, but that's me. I'm just bringing it up because it's been brought to my attention.
Okay, well, we can discuss at chairs meeting, and it's an improvement. There's no reason why we wouldn't consider it or try to do it. Go ahead, Martin.
Wouldn't we want to start the election committee and have that formed and then maybe have that committee make that decision? Because wouldn't that be?
I think you'd want to make it probably because we're still in the off season this year. So would be best to make it between now and the end of December. We're going to do it. You can reference the Constitution and yeah, Ruthie.
The election oversight. I visit with him, of course, because I work for him. And Ms. Langford's comment is, I think, timely, that it is time to start discussing, because remember, a year from now, we are in election time. Some of the things you may propose changes or adjustment to would affect like filing candidacy, eligibility, and the election process itself. In 2020, or excuse me, 2019, oh no, it was 2021. I already lost a year there. We had the July primary. So that was my question for Greg, if we were staying on that schedule and then thus having an election process in one fiscal year and then the general in the following. So just that's my comment. I do recall in my years of remembrance that only one time did we have an election board that didn't seat all the non-running council. That was, I think, about a decade or so ago. Yeah, there was a couple of non-council folks that did serve accordingly. I think under the Constitution, it states that the council appoints a board of itself or whomever. So there's already that provision, and whether it needs to be formalized in election rules would be your call.
Yeah, it's a very timely thing for us to look at this upcoming quarter. Dan, Jeff, oh no, okay. You're handling the mic, all right. All right, we'll look into that for sure. Go ahead, Terry.
I was asked, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some years ago, we purchased some property west of Lone Pine called the Bear Ranch. Black Bear, and it used to have a lot of llamas on it, and non-tribal people owned it. We purchased that, and I thought the intent was for kind of a rehab center. I was wondering, the question was, who's living there now? Are they tribal or non-tribal? And has anything been done with that place?
Yes, you can, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for bringing that up, Terry. Currently, that is being leased to a group out of Elmo called One Heart. They're utilizing the ranch facility as a recovery center. Primarily for those that are waiting to get into treatment and need a safe place to go until a bed is opened is what they're using it for. But yeah, thank you for the question. And I can ask them to come in and give us a report, because periodically they were doing that. So.
Any other closing comments from council? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have the Constitution here, and to answer Carol's question, that Section 2, the tribal council or an election board appointed by council shall determine rules and regulations governing all elections. And in section 4, the tribal council or a board appointed by the council shall certify to the election of the members of the council within 5 days after the election returns. In section 6, the tribal council or a board appointed by the tribal council shall designate the polling places and appoint all election officials. Do it.
Yep, I think everybody's recalling it correctly. Thank you.
The decision whether we're gonna do it.
Yeah, so we need to do it in the next few months, actually. I would not get into it next calendar year because the next calendar year is an election year, so. And we don't want to have any more pizza bot and kind of stuff, right?
All the people that bought pizza were children who are not of voting age, so it was
Okay.
the coffee cup.
Look into the
The
future.
coffee
Artie.
cup, come on, that's
Planting
where
the
I was,
seed.
that's where I was stumping, you know. But I told them the people bought it for them, so I wasn't taking credit.
Okay. Thank you, Martin, for clarifying that. Okay, I mean, when council recedes back in the back room, Dan, would you mind coming back with us? With that, I'd like to close the meeting. I'd like to close it with a prayer. If I could ask Bing maybe to close us with a prayer would be, thank you.
Lemnem, School and Sutton. We thank you, Father, for bringing everybody here today. We thank you for Johnny and the drum group for bringing their prayers and their songs to us and giving us a great day, you know, to hear what our elders had to speak about. Whether it's good that everybody was here and all of the information that was passed by the council here, it was great. There's a lot of information and it was great to hear that all of us are working together and being one, you know, and that hasn't happened for a while. And I'm glad that I'm happy to hear that. Thank you, Father, for letting that happen, you know, and letting this be a blessing for everyone. I ask you to watch over us, watch over the event that's coming up, and I ask you to help Martin with all the activities and whatever else he's got to do. And we just thank you, Father, in your name. Lemnem.
Thank you, Bing. Okay, we are adjourned.